Additional number to get us back here. All right. All right. Have y'all enjoyed yourselves so far today? Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going to kick off the second half of the day. I can't believe we're already at the second half of the day. We're now in our sixth session, focusing on health and wellness. And we're going to start off with comprehensive counseling for collegiate student athletes. And that's going to be brought to us by Leah Howard from Mercer University. So let's just give her a round of applause, please, as she comes forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Howard. I'm representing Mercer University as a first-year PhD student. So a little bit about my history and what drove my passion for counseling for student athletes. I was a former athlete myself. I was elected the captain of the Spelman College tennis team during my sophomore year. I planned to play all 4 years, but at the end of the 2013 season, my junior season, they told us that the athletic department was being discontinued. I had no idea at that time how that was going to impact my career plans in working with student athletes until my younger cousin, who attended the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and was a running back at the time, his football program was discontinued as well. And so when you see that and you see people's lives truly being transformed, the similarities between the UAB football team and the Spelman College athletic department, these students needed support and someone to talk to. So instead of being a former student athlete, I wanted to shift my identity into someone who was going to assist and support student athletes. So this is a screenshot that I took September 2018. As you can see at the top, the hashtag athletes has around 2 million posts. But if you look, counseling for athletes, mental health for athletes, and therapy for athletes at that time only had within 30 public posts. And if you look at this time, counseling for student athletes only has 2 posts, which have been posted by myself. But that lets me know that society sees these things as separate entities. Counseling, mental health, and athletes are seen as separate entities. So we really want to try to engage those conversations and keep the conversations going to raise awareness. So this is a quote from the NCAA that further re-emphasizes that we should not see mental health and athlete health as 2 separate entities. Students are coming to campus with more social and emotional needs than ever before. And if we continue to view them as separate, that means some students are not receiving the supports that they need. So when we look at Black student athletes in particular, there is still a stigma against mental health. It's seen as a weakness. Some students are also fearful and ashamed when asking for assistance. Oftentimes with Black students, we see that they are overdiagnosed with conduct disorders and also being labeled as aggressive, but yet underdiagnosed when it comes to emotional disorders such as stress and depression and anxiety. The beauty about being a student athlete is the accessibility to the many different options available on campus. And it's usually affordability that keeps people from seeking mental health options. And this is why it's so imperative that we have strong counseling programs on campuses available for these students. So when we look at what encompasses a comprehensive counseling program, accessibility, sports counselors and sports psychologists should be on staff as trained professionals. Everyone who comes in contact with student athletes, including student athletes, should be aware of the referral processes and procedures. Usually, most times we see that personal trainers are the first lines of defense because they already have a relationship established with these students. So those sorts of people should be aware and informed of the referral procedures. It's also important that we have workshops that engage students, coaches, and athletic staff on the accessibility of mental health and recognizing those stressors and ending the stigmas against it. It's also an opportunity to engage and develop those organic relationships with the facilitators of the programs and those students who are participants in the workshops. Relatability. So a lot of times when we think relatability, we pair that with cultural competency. So I was watching a speech by Dr. Ryan Sutton, and I was inspired to change that to cultural proficiency. Because if you Google the definition of the difference between proficiency and competency, it says, competency is defined as the bare minimum required for acceptability. Proficiency carries with it a level of mastery above the minimum. So we want to make sure that these counseling programs, those who are working with athletes, are culturally proficient in what they do. And we also want to establish healthy environments and having a climate in which students are comfortable with approaching staff about their mental health needs. So how do we do that? So Powerful Minds is a student initiative that was started in 2017 that involves engaging students across campus to end the stigmas against mental health. There is a video attached. Is it possible to play that? No. Okay, so this was a video attachment. It was a 40-second clip, but it showed multiple college students talking about the program and raising awareness and wearing the color green for a week. Oh, okay, here it is. No, I don't think so.
Strong in mind, strong in body, strong in school, sport, life.
The grind is 10% physical and 90% mental.
The mind is the power.
The body is the means to jump higher, run faster,
be smarter, and live longer.
There is no weakness when it comes to seeking help.
We are stronger together.
So let's talk about it.
A waterfall starts with one drop.
Change starts with one person.
The American is dedicated to ending the stigma related to mental health.
And promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
Promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
Okay, so it is great to see that the conversation is continuing to happen on college campuses, but one suggestion I would have for this sort of advertisement while we are on the topic of Black student athletes is allowing them to have speaking roles in these engagements so that they feel like they are a part of the conversations. Okay. So my passion is what drives me to help these student athletes, and as long as we continue to engage in these types of conversations and raising awareness and ending stigmas, I look forward to seeing the transformative process that is going to happen. So that's all.
Questions. So where's my microphone team at? Okay, I guess I'm gonna be the mic man. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, it is the breakout. So I have a mic. Yes, if you don't mind. We just wherever you see a hand, take the microphone.
Look, I'm trying to just walk slowly. Try it out. Try it out.
Thank you. Thank both of you ladies for your time and information. You both mentioned resiliency, and those, pretty much the folks here working athletics, we unintentionally do a disservice to the development of resiliency, telling them where to be, when to be there, what to wear, etc. Do you have recommendations and suggestions on how to help build that resiliency in them? Because like I said, unintentionally we do a disservice to them, and it's somebody's job. But how do we help build that to help them be more mentally sound and tough, etc.?
I think attending summits like this is the first step in having these conversations, and just being mindful of when you are addressing these student athletes, you know, saying that you're tough, you got this, and telling them to focus on their physical injuries rather than also addressing their mental injuries is a huge component in providing support for them. And a lot of times it comes down to just asking them, what do you need from me right now in this moment? Because a lot of times we assume as people working with students that we know what's best for them. And at the age 18 through 23, however old they may be, sometimes they know and can verbalize very well what they need from you. Times student athletes can pick up on authenticity. So that person doesn't necessarily have to look like them in order to have the relatability factor. But in many cases, you find if you ask students that they would like mental health professionals that do look like them and do have a different level of understanding. So I think even in having that conversation allows them to feel like they have some autonomy in who has control over helping their mental health status. So even if all of the staff members in your school are white, those students can still choose who they identify with. You know, they don't necessarily have to go to the on-site psychologist. They can find somebody in the diversity clinic or anywhere. But making them feel like they have a voice and choice over who has say over their mental health is a huge component of that.
Yeah, Mental Health America offers that free, and I think that coaches should be required to take that training.
Yeah, and it's also important for these schools to have diversity on staff to be able to address the needs of all of the students who attend their schools.
They don't want to let the Mercer people go. Oh, there's a question. I can't see. Oh.
Just at the K through 12 level, with student athletes entering into the collegiate, usually coming from schools that maybe had one counselor, hadn't that bad experience, how are you, working with them to, because I know we talk a lot about stigma with our race and culture, but just the bad experiences from the high school counseling experience or the middle school peer mediations and that type of cycle. How do you address and work with those student athletes that previously had adverse experiences with counseling?
So I think it's really important to start establishing those relationships. One of the things that was really important when I was a school counselor was being visible around the school. So that way students, the first time they have a mental health issue or feel like they want to report to the counseling center, they're not going to an unfamiliar face. So there is some familiarity built and those relationships are built, and counselors have to do their part in making sure that they are seen on campus, and not just within the counseling department or mental health facility, but going to games and attending different functions to show athletes that they care and that they are invested in their mental health.
And I think just to address it, I'm one that's, let's look at the real situation. You didn't have a good experience. Tell me about how that experience was and what would have been helpful for you. And so for me, it's also important to educate about what the process should look like, and how you can still get help even though you had that bad experience. But let's talk about that experience so we can figure out what would be the good fit for you, the best fit for you, and how can we move forward. But giving them an opportunity to talk about how that experience impacted them and why it may be difficult for them to trust in that process.
We put our hands together for our presenters one last time.